It's a very good question, and I have worked in a number of different foundations, so I have some experience and I can compare. Most foundations are doing very good work, and those that focus on health are doing very good work in health. Other foundations support the arts, dance, whatever you can think of, children, for example, and children's well-being. But foundations are inherently unaccountable, and those that are still family-run, like the Bloomberg Philanthropy, that foundation, they are accountable to, in this case, one man, one American billionaire, who's having a tremendous influence on public health worldwide because of the work that he's doing in tobacco control, some of which is good. But unfortunately, Michael Bloomberg is a harm reduction denier. Now, to me, that's like being an anti-vaxxer. I know some people may take exception to, but I think that vaccines actually help people and save lives. And I think that harm reduction helps people and saves lives. So here we have one billionaire from one country who is funding much of the World Health Organization's tobacco control work. It would be, to me, like having an anti-vaxxer billionaire funding all of their vaccine work, which no one would think was okay. And you have people who are taking money from that foundation and declaring no conflict of interest, although they are absolutely required to fight against harm reduction, which is just unethical. That's a kind of a dangerous direction to go. They're not, in the end. Ultimately, and they can be swayed. And they are just people. And the people who work in the foundations also are just people. So they can be persuaded just like anyone else. In the end, it's our job to try to help persuade them with the evidence and with testimonials from real people and with just our lived experience. This is an issue, has always been an issue with, in the case of the World Health Organization, taking money from the outside. So their core budget is only about 30% of their whole budget. Much of the rest of their funding comes from development assistance organizations, like the U.S. Agency for International Development, or some from the Wellcome Trust, which is another foundation, a UK-based foundation. And the agency in the UK, which used to be called DFID, the Department for International Development, I think they have a new name now. And this sways, changes, and in some cases warps the work that the World Health Organization does. And there is a danger there, that it's not always going to be consistent with the needs, especially of people in low and middle income countries. When foundations get involved, that brings the quirkiness of foundations, each individual investment strategy. And if that strategy is wrong and the World Health Organization needs money, there's a massive conflict of interest. Well, there's a valid argument being made that INCO has received some funding from a controversial foundation called the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. They have received funding from a very large tobacco company called BMI. And so it's a discussion worth having. But the fact is, we can't operate unless we have resources. And every INCO member is literally an ex-smoker who is using safer nicotine with the lived experience of having improved health. And really, most of our support is from our members because they're all working with no pay. And I often say when I'm accused of working for big tobacco, first of all, 75% of us hate big tobacco. So that's a ludicrous argument. This is according to my own surveys. But also, I worked in global health for 25 years. And some of my work focused on advocating for condom use to prevent HIV/AIDS and sexually transmitted diseases. And no one ever accused me of working for Big Condom. So this is we're in a strange place when people are making those arguments and can't actually look. And the other thing is, they won't talk to us. They won't have a respectful conversation to find out who we really are, because we would welcome that. Change opinion. So there are many ways to do that. We really rely on the evidence that is generated from science, and then try our best to translate it into a language that anyone can understand in English, and then in many other languages as well, including Spanish, of course. And so that's an important part, but it's not the only part that really changes minds and hearts. And a lot of what we try to focus on is personal testimonials. There are real people. We had a small group put together of old farts vaping to prove and show that actually most people who are using safer nicotine alternatives are adult, sometimes grisly old adults like me, who are using safer nicotine products in order to avoid toxic forms of tobacco and thus not die. So our personal stories are some of the most important tools that we have. And little by little by little, opinion can change, but it's going to take a long time. That's an excellent question, and one I've given a lot of thought to. In the beginning, tobacco control focused on reducing cancer and heart disease and lung disease, which our organization supports those goals wholeheartedly. That's why we do what we do. But very quickly, the demonization began. And if you look at the early documents in tobacco control, you'll find that smoking, which causes those diseases, this is demonized first. Then tobacco, and very often people are using the two words as if they're synonymous, as if they're the same. And then nicotine. So smoking, tobacco, and nicotine, they're not the same word and they're not the same thing. Nicotine is a mild psychoactive drug comparable to caffeine, doesn't intoxicate, and we are people who enjoy using it just like our morning coffee. But because nicotine is associated with cancer, heart, and lung disease, in many people's minds, it's evil, it's bad. But the thing is, nicotine doesn't cause those diseases. It is other things in the tobacco smoke, the solid particulates, the carbon monoxide, and the carcinogens that do those things. Nicotine is relatively harmless. So we move along, but 4 decades of tobacco control messaging have really twisted public opinion and the opinion of experts. So we know from surveys, 80% of American physicians believe that nicotine causes cancer, which it does not. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, which thinks everything causes cancer, says very explicitly, no, nicotine doesn't cause cancer. 80% of American physicians believe nicotine causes heart disease, that it causes lung disease. It doesn't do any of those things. So 4 out of 5 doctors are profoundly misinformed. You have to ask, what are they teaching them in medical school? And if they're that misinformed, then think of the general public. And this was a problem early on when nicotine patches and nicotine gum were first introduced to help smokers quit. Now those are available in every drugstore, every pharmacy. But initially, because they deliver nicotine, many people thought that they were harmful. They're not harmful, and nor are they even dependence forming. So I could spend an entire day talking about the misconceptions that surround nicotine. In fact, it's a natural product from a plant that has many therapeutic benefits.